Hi, I'm Ashton, and I desperately need to clean my desk, but I will do that this weekend. That's a weekend project. I'm gonna forget about it now. To address the elephant in the room, yes, my hair is purple. It's semi-permanent. I used Arctic Fox purple rain dye. It smells really good, and I love it. And I missed having my hair colored. I had it colored for like years and years. And the other thing, I got a bat necklace, and I love it. I don't know if you can see it, but I love it. And I'm still wearing my crystal necklace. It's just under my shirt. Okay. Now that I've covered that. Also, just a quick warning that I am going to be talking about genitals in this video. If you couldn't tell, I might use words for biology that you're uncomfortable with, so, watch at your own discretion. If you gotta leave at any time, feel free to do so. Go pet your dog. When I was looking into starting testosterone, like, somewhere between a year and 2 years ago, the only effect of HRT that I wasn't 100% sure that I wanted was bottom growth. I did so much research on bottom growth because when you do research on, like, standard effects of testosterone, it's an item on the list, but, like, you just see the words clitoral growth or, genital growth or something like that. So I was just like, what does that mean? What's gonna happen? So I wanted to know. So I did a ton of research, and I didn't find a lot of things, which was disappointing to me at the time, okay? I wanted to know what would happen to my dick. So looking into bottom growth was actually how I found Chase Ross, who's now one of my, favorite internet people. He's one of the only people that I've seen, openly, repeatedly talk about bottom growth and how testosterone is affecting him, and I found that extremely helpful when I was looking into starting T. Because I do have bottom dysphoria, but it's definitely not the thing that I have the most dysphoria about. So I was kind of skeptical of, is this thing gonna make me feel worse about my genitals and stuff like that. It hasn't, spoiler alert, but I wanted to know. I wanted to see what would happen. I wanted to figure out, scientifically what would happen. But there's next to no information on bottom growth on the internet. Voice comparisons, facial hair comparisons, jaw lines, you see a shit ton of that when you're looking for, stuff about testosterone. When you look up stuff like, hey, what's gonna happen to my genitals? You get pretty vague answers, and you get a few pictures, none of which are particularly high quality, and none of which really show before and after. So I was like, well, I don't know what genitals look like. I don't know if this is, similar to what they looked like before. I don't know anything about that. So basically, after watching some Chase Ross videos, I was like, okay, it doesn't sound like it's gonna be that dramatic of a change. I'm just gonna start T and not worry about my genitals. Because even though it was the one thing I wasn't 100% sure that I wanted, it was also something that I was like, if something changes, I'm not gonna care. So yeah, I guess that kind of sums up why I want to make this video, because when I was searching for stuff about bottom growth, I found next to nothing. So I want to put just one more thing out there for young trans guys that are looking to start T or thinking about starting T. This is me talking about my dick. But yeah, so at the time that I was looking into it, the only information I could find was pretty much through Chase Ross. When I was thinking about making this video, I did some more research on it. There's a couple more trans YouTubers that have talked about it since I looked it up last, but still, when I looked up, any scientific articles, any studies, any, actual medical documents, I could find absolutely nothing. So if you can find anything that, scientifically links testosterone to bottom growth, I know the general thing of how it happens, but, if you know of some sort of article or study done on it, please tell me. So my conclusion after my second batch of research was testosterone very often does make your genitals grow, but nothing on the internet really tells you how they grow, or the sensitivity perhaps, or the time frame. And the reason for that is because it is completely different for every single person, which I'll get into later. But anyways, I would still have liked to know that before I started T. So unfortunately, I'm not a doctor, I'm not an endocrinologist, I'm not a professional on hormones or bodies. I can't really tell you scientifically in terms of hormones why testosterone makes your genitals change. But here's the basics of what I know. When you're in the womb, a lot of things develop before your primary sex characteristics develop. When the baby gets a little bit bigger and the chromosome that determines the biological sex of the fetus starts expressing itself, when that gene starts expressing itself, the same place on the baby's body either grows into a phallus or stays where it is as a clitoris. So essentially, a penis and a clitoris are made out of very, very similar tissue. And in a very, very basic sense, the expression of genes and introduction of testosterone into the womb are what makes a male child grow a penis, and the lack of that is what makes a female child not. If you're transmasculine or assigned female at birth and non-binary and you decide to go on T, that is one of the things that will change. You're not going to grow like a full-size penis with testicles, because the same genetic material that makes up testicles is what makes up your ovaries, and when you're in the womb, your genes decide whether they're going to just stay as gonads or change into ovaries or testicles or somewhere in between. Intersex people exist. Like, your ovaries aren't going to drop and become testicles, but your clitoris, which, as I explained earlier, is very similar material to a penis, specifically the head of a penis, will grow, lengthen, sensitize. It'll change. The way that it changes isn't the same for everyone, but there are some general trends. In the year and 2 months that I've been on testosterone, the changes that I've experienced have not been dramatic, but it's also important to note that I started out for the first 6 months on a very low dose of testosterone that did not bring my testosterone levels up to the right amount. I have good T levels now as far as I am aware, as far as my last test indicated, but regardless of that, the changes in my genitals were one of the first things I noticed because it was very sensitive, and it was very sensitive to the point of discomfort at times. So the anatomy of a vulva is not something that you learn really in sex ed, at least not something I did. But where like your normal skin meets your vulva, there is something called a clitoris, and above it there's something called a clitoral hood. The clitoral hood kind of acts as a foreskin in a way, if you were to compare it again to the biology of a penis. And when you go on T, the general things that you might experience is clitoral growth. It might get longer or like wider or both. It could get more sensitive. Some people say that for them it changes color. It is more like responsive to certain ways of touch. It's more sensitive, and for a lot of people it kind of grows outside the foreskin in a way that it might look like a little baby dick. And for a lot of people that lessens dysphoria, because like the feeling feels more like what you would expect having a penis to feel like. So that in a lot of ways relieves dysphoria for people, and being like bigger than the average person with a clitoris can also relieve some dysphoria. For me, it has a little bit, but I still do have bottom dysphoria. But the main problem and the main thing I've noticed for me with growth is just the sensitivity. Can it feel good? Yes, duh. But a lot of the times it's just uncomfortable at being in your underwear, because when the clitoris grows and grows out of the clitoral hood, it's exposed, and that can be painful. But for a lot of people, the pain goes away after a few months or once it's done growing. For me, it's still really uncomfortably sensitive. But again, I was on low-dose T for quite some time. Everybody reacts to testosterone differently, and everyone's like changes on testosterone are different, so it's really difficult to compare me with somebody that started off on like a dose that immediately brought their T levels up to where they should be. It's just difficult to compare how different people's bodies react to different doses of hormones, or how people with similar bodies react to the same amount of hormones, because even that can be different, which can be extremely frustrating. When you're looking into information about bottom growth on testosterone, you don't necessarily want to see it varies for everything, but that's the truth. I've seen some people say that their bottom growth can be like 2 inches when they're hard. I doubt that, but you never know. But I would say don't go into testosterone with any expectations of bottom growth. For some people, it doesn't happen ever. For some people, they feel completely comfortable with it and they enjoy it. And for some like me, it's just kind of a like, okay, well, things have changed, not necessarily in a bad or a good way. They're just different now. I wish I could give you definitive answers on what bottom growth is and how it affects people, but unfortunately, kind of like the rest of testosterone's effects, it's different for everybody. The other thing is that you do, in a way, have to clean it. Because of the way the clitoral hood is and the way that your growth is like positioned within it, fabric from your underwear can get stuck in places, like toilet paper can get stuck in places. It's like not the greatest. It's not like terrible, it's fine. But just like if you're in the shower, face the water, let it rinse yourself out, and you'll be fine. Like, it's not that bad. It can be sensitive for quite some time, but you get used to it and just grimace your way through it. Grimace? Grissom? I know there's a C in there, but I don't know where it is. If bottom growth is something that you feel like is holding you back from going on testosterone because you're not sure if you want it or not, I would say don't let that hold you back, because it's not something that you have to deal with. It's not something that's guaranteed, just like anything else on testosterone. I wouldn't let that one thing hold you back from something that you want to do, especially if you don't know that it will definitively happen. But don't let it hold you back. It's just something that's going to feel different for a while, and it might feel uncomfortable for a while, but in the end, if you don't want to treat it any differently than how you did before testosterone, you don't have to. It's not an extremely dramatic change for a lot of people, and if you don't want it to happen, just kind of ignore it. I promise you, it doesn't impact your life all that much. I'm telling you this because I know a lot of my followers are transmasculine or are just starting T, looking to start T, and this is something that I wish I'd had more resources on when I was starting. So this is my experience and what I've learned, and what I've learned through observing and talking to other people, and now I'm passing it on to you. You're welcome. I hope you learned something today. Of course, again, not everybody that goes on testosterone will experience this, and no two people will experience it the same way. So look for a lot of different perspectives, not just mine. It's going to be difficult. There's not a lot out there about bottom growth, but I'm sure there's something you can find that will teach you something or clarify something. If you do have any, questions that I didn't really cover, feel free to ask in the comments, or if you're more comfortable, talking to me about it in private, feel free to DM me. That's totally fine. But yeah, that is my experience with bottom growth. I hope that you are comfortable with your genitals, and I hope that if you're not, you can learn to be soon, or something will change. So I don't know where I'm going with this. I will talk to you later, maybe.